Hey YouTube friends, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about 5 symbols of Mormonism that you probably didn't know. We are going into the belly of the beast. I'm just warning you right now. So we'll do Q&A and then we're going to get into symbolism. I will give you a heads up as we go in there because what I'm going to ask you to do is to protect yourselves because today's topic is not going to be so pleasant in terms of spirit, but it is going to be necessary so that we can understand the language of symbolism. Let's go to our first letter. Hey Galactic, I have a very serious concern I'm worried about, so hopefully you can answer this for me. I recently watched your video on baptism for the dead. Scary. My family's mostly Mormon, but I'm not and don't ever want to be, not even when I'm dead. Do you think they're going to baptize me after I die, even if I don't want it? Thanks, and please give me some good news, Jackie. Okay, well, Jackie, you have a very legitimate concern. I'm going to give you the truth, and then I'm going to give you good news. And the reality is yes, you will probably have to go through that. You won't realize it, but they're going to baptize you when you die. When somebody crosses over or has passed through this physical world, the waiting period is 1 year. And usually when families are LDS, they will submit the name at that point and somebody will go through via proxy and you will be baptized in the temple symbolically. Now, I found this picture online. I think it's hilarious. And when I did the video for Baptism for the Dead, I really wish I had this picture at the time. But here we have a depiction of somebody baptizing this young man on the oxen, and we talked about the symbolism there. But it says, I bulk baptize you for and behalf of everyone in the 16th century who are dead. Mormons now expedite temple ordinances with baptism of individuals by eras, ages, rather than trying to track down, obtain erroneous and or incomplete information and run the risk of offending the posterity of all these dead. So that's the reality. LDS members have this push, this directive from the brethren to do their genealogy work back at least 4 generations. That's what they like to see. Now, even if your family members understand that you do not want to be baptized, an LDS member after death, you could have somebody in your family tree 4 generations down look at the genealogy and notice, Jackie, that you've not been baptized, and unbeknownst to them of your wishes, they're going to go ahead and do the work. So chances are that's going to happen. Here's the good news. You always get to be in charge of your spirit. And what I mean by that is these ordinances, the principles of the gospel, are false. They carry no weight. So whether it's this realm or the one after to come, there's no validity to it. So that nullifies the ordinance, first of all. But secondly, since you are in charge of your spirit, you get to decide what happens to yourself anyway. So I wouldn't even worry about this. It's kind of funny. It's offensive. For sure, it's offensive that they do this. They think they're doing a good work for the individual, but it is offensive for those of us who want nothing to do with it and find it insulting that they would put their religion onto us. But you don't have to accept it. So that's the good news. Thanks for writing in, Jackie. Let's go to our next letter here. This one's a little more serious. Dear Galactic Storyteller, I have a very serious problem and I'm not sure what to do. I came across your video on temple ceilings thinking I was going to get a little information on my upcoming marriage and what to expect. Turns out it's not what I thought I was looking at, and I'm now a little scared. My sealing is just a month away, and I don't know if I can go through with it. Not only that, but my fiance and I have had sex a few times, so we're definitely not worthy to be there anyways. I'm filled with so much guilt and can barely help my mom and sisters plan the reception. That guilt and shame will do more harm, I promise you that. Since you come from a Mormon family, surely you know how much pressure is on us to follow through, and the shame will bring upon both families if we don't. I can't sleep and can barely eat, and not because I need to fit into my dress. What should I do? Please, please tell me. Katie Lynn. You're in a pickle. That's for sure, and there are no two ways about that. So I'm sorry that video has caused a little bit of stress and consternation for you. That's not the intention. I'm glad you came upon it anyways, because I think as you go through these individual videos, you're going to really start to see the foundation of the church and its principles the way they were intended, and the reality of it. And the reality of it is not what we have thought or what we were told this entire time. And when that happens, then you realize, just like I was saying to Jackie, that nullifies the ordinance. Now, I'm going to tell you what I would do if it were me, because I think you're in a tough situation. I kind of think it's the best way to go. Your family has already put money into the wedding and the reception. No doubt you have family members coming in from town. You have finances invested in the cake, the reception, a band, whatever it is that you're doing. So these things are already there. Now, the Mormon Church, in terms of the sealing, they are legally and lawfully able to do the ceremony. So I would go ahead and get married, because what's done is done. When you realize and understand that the principles of the church are false, these are false teachings, that removes any guilt and any shame that's being put upon you, whether through the doctrine or from yourself for not living up to these false doctrines. So then you don't have to worry about the guilt aspect of being in the temple when you feel like you're not worthy, or you're told you're not worthy to be there, because this is a false principle anyways. What I would do actually is talk to my fiance. You guys need to be on the same team, because you're both in the same boat. And I would imagine that he is going to want to get married as planned. You guys can legally and lawfully get that part taken care of. And then after the reception and things kind of settle, then you can deal with the spiritual aspect of what you're looking at in terms of whether or not you believe in the LDS doctrines, whether you need to do some investigation there. Maybe you'll want to repent. Maybe you'll realize that it's all crap and you can free yourself of the guilt and the shame all on your own without having to put yourself through the torture of a false confession and a false repentance. That part's not necessary, but I don't know that you're there yet. So I really wish you the best with that. I would just keep searching, get through this next month the best that you can, Katie Lynn, and keep me posted on how you're doing. I do wish you and your fiance a happy, happy life, regardless of which way you go. So let's jump into symbolism. So many times I have talked to you guys about the importance of being symbol literate. When we are symbol literate, symbols are conveying a message to us. It's like learning a dialect. It's a different language. So what's being communicated has to be understood from a different level, because a smiley face may not be just a smiley face. Now, the LDS temples are covered in symbols. Do you know what they mean? I'm guessing you might think you do, but do you really? There have been a couple of videos where we talked about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So you'll want to go back to maybe, I think it was the baby blessing video, where we talk in depth about the mind. And then we've got, I believe it was the name the Temple Oracle name video where we talked about esoteric meaning and exoteric meaning. So you'll definitely want to understand that, because what LDS members have been taught and told about these symbols is the exoteric meaning. Okay, the outer knowledge, but that doesn't mean it's the original intended information, and that's where we're going today. I'm going to ask you guys to protect yourselves. We're going to call a spade, because these symbols are incredibly satanic, and you're going to see why here in just a second. Now, there are 159 temples throughout the world, and that would include those that are closed down for repair, construction of some sort. We cannot cover every single temple, and I hope you guys understand that. So these symbols that we're going to go over, not all the symbols are on all the temples, but all the temples have some of these symbols. And I originally started with 10 symbols, and I felt like the video was going to be too long. So this is part 1. We will do 5 symbols this week, and then we'll do part 2 where we cover another 10 symbols. And I am going to throw in some bonus hand signs so you guys can be aware of what that means as well. So when you go to Temple Square, whether you are at the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, whether you're at the temple, the tabernacle, you go to Eagles Gate, the visitor center, these things have symbols all over them, and I want you to understand what these things mean so that you can take that subconscious understanding and bring it to the conscious mind, so now you can decide how you're going to maneuver this information. There are 4 kinds of information, and I learned this as I started researching years ago. There's truth, there are lies, there's misinformation, and misinformation is maybe it's just human error. Maybe they didn't get something right because they didn't have all the facts. It was just something that was done inadvertently, and there's no malicious intent behind it. There's no intent to deceive or to mislead, and that's really important that you guys understand the difference between misinformation, and the 4th one is disinformation. Disinformation is just as destructive as lies are, because what happens is this information is mixed in with, it's a mixture of lies and truth, and you have to always use extreme discernment when you are looking at anything so that you can distinguish between the lies and the truth. Now, there are some websites out there that are LDS sponsored. There's a YouTube out there that goes over LDS symbolism, and I do believe he's just misinformed, because I did not get the feeling that he was misleading you out of maliciousness, and his intention is to help you understand these symbols. Now, I was on a couple of LDS sites, and I do believe this to be disinformation, because these brethren of the church know the truth of these symbols and their origins, and they are deliberately giving you exoteric information when they know the esoteric information, and that is to deceive you. It is their intention to mislead you. So that is the difference between misinformation and disinformation. I will be giving you some references as we go through the symbols today. And as always, I will include those references and then some down in the description box. So let's get started. The first one we're going to go over is Baal. Now, we've talked about Baal in 2 different videos, and we can't cover the same information in every single video. I hope you guys understand that. So with the Exposed series, it's really important that you guys go through each one of them, because we build on the information. Baal takes on many names and shapes and forms, And we talked in one of the videos, I think it was the Baptism for the Dead video, about how in different cultures, in different time periods, a lot of the same characters will have different names. Okay, but let's take a look at Baal. I'm going to show you a picture first of the Nauvoo temple. Now this is a sun. How harmless is that, right? Very innocuous. We have the sun, okay? Now you will see the sun on the Salt Lake Temple. We're going to take a look at that in just a second, but let's see what the sun actually represents. The Trinity got its start from ancient Babylon with Nimrod, Tammuz, and Semiramis. And we talked about Tammuz. That's the birth name of Baal. Semiramis demanded worship for both her husband and her son, as well as herself. She claimed that her son was both father and the son. He was God the Father and God the Son. This is the first incomprehensible Trinity, okay, from Babylon. So we've got Nimrod, who was the reincarnation, or Tammuz, or Baal, who was the reincarnation of Nimrod, and this was an incestuous relationship, and it's represented anytime we see the sun. This is representative of Baal, Baal of Babylon. Semiramis and her priests of Satan were deep into the occult, magic, and illusion. They were masters of lies and deception. Everywhere there were statues or idols of this mother-child cult. Semiramis was hailed as, quote, the Queen of Heaven. Okay, her symbol became the moon, and we're going to talk about moon symbolism in just a second. And her husband Nimrod was called Baal, the sun god, and that's why he's represented as the sun. And his symbol became the sun. The city of Babylon was the seat of Satan worship until the fall to the Medes and the Persians in 539 BC. So let's take a look at the picture of the sunstone. This is from the Salt Lake Temple. Just very simple. But what does that represent? The sun, which represents Baal. And here's something I want you guys to bear in mind. Ask yourself, why do we worship on Sun Day? Sun, S-U-N, day. Think about that, okay? Important. We might have to do a video sometime on word magic and breaking them down and what they really mean, which is, of course, why we have to learn spelling. Words carry power. So we'll have to break that down at another time, but I do want you to consider that we worship on Sun, S-U-N, day. Number 2, let's take a look at the moon. Now, I'm going to show you a picture. This is from the St. Louis, Missouri temple, and this picture depicts in one picture all the different phases of the moon. So let's take a look at that. See that? Each window shows the moon in a different phase. Now, I'm going to read to you from LDSliving.com what they say about the moon phases and the symbolism of the sun, moon, and the stars. And you will see that this is exoteric information. They are deliberately trying to mislead you. This is astrology, okay? And I'm not saying astrology is good or bad, okay? It is an art of divination. Let's just call it what it is. Planetary symbols such as the sun, moon, and stars direct our attention to God and challenge us to complete matters of eternal significance as we work to emulate the true life of our true light, Jesus Christ. Many temples have earth, moon, sun, and star stones. This pattern usually represents, notice the wording here, usually represents the 3 degrees of glory. And this is what I grew up understanding, is that the sun, moon, and the stars represented the celestial, terrestrial, and telestial kingdom. However, they can also represent increasingly longer measurements of time with a day, a month, a year, and so on. The stars at the top, particularly the unmoving North Star. Okay, now here again we have the North Star, and if you'll think back to the washing and anointing video, we talked about when we went through the garments and the changing, how they had changed the meaning of the symbols. We talked about the North Star. So this has been part of the symbolism from its inception. Polaris, so the unmoving North Star, Polaris, represent the centers of the heavens where time seems to stop. Earth stones can represent the gospel being spread to all nations, kindreds, tongue, and people, and depict Earth as God's footstool. Just a little bit more from LDS Living. Moonstones depict the 4 phases of the moon, half full crescent and new, symbolizing progression from birth to resurrection. Okay, I kind of thought that was baptism, but whatever. Sunstones, in addition to representing the celestial kingdom, are symbols of the glory of God, the light of the world. Now, we just learned 2 minutes ago that the moon represents Semiramis, our mother in heaven. Okay, that's what she represents, or what the moon represents. Let's take a look at the satanic meaning of the moon. Stemming from primitive sun worship, primitive going all the way back to Babylon, many religions have recognized the moon as a symbol of literal and figurative darkness and blood. In classical monotheistic theology, the lunar sphere is the domain of Satan, jinn, and demons. And here it is all over the temples. There is more magical energy during a full moon and a new moon than there is at any other time, and this does benefit by increasing the energy force available. And some of us understand, and if you ask any first responders in hospitals, it tends to get a little crazier around the full moon time. So the Earth, I think most of us understand that the moon does carry some sort of weird energy with it. However, Satan nor demons are bound to full moon arrivals and are free to manifest as they desire. Full moon is particularly good for sex rituals and is related to female power. So we know that the female cycle every 28 days is on the same cycle of the moon. So there's definitely a connection between the moon and the female power energy. Let's take a look at the Washington, D.C. temple doors. You can see the different phases of the moon there. So it's not just on 1 or 2 temples. We have this all over the place, and you can see the concentric circles. These doors feature medallions with seven different symbols, star, planet, concentric circles representing eternity. The sun, complete with a face like the Nauvoo sunstone, the earth, 7 concentric pentagons, and we're going to be talking about that. I think they kind of meant pentagrams, but might be a typo there, representing 7 dispensations and the moon. This is one of only a few of the temples that show the Big Dipper constellation. This constellation points to the North Star, again with the North Star, which travelers relied on to help them navigate their way on their journeys. One more picture here. This is from Mount Timpanogos, Utah, which I used to live like 10-15 minutes down the street. Look at that moon there, and then below it you see the different moon phases. Okay, again, the moon does represent Semiramis, the Queen of Heaven, or our Heavenly Mother. We always talk about, or we don't always talk about Heavenly Mother because we're not supposed to. She is kept quiet and in the background, as a lot of women are. We know the force behind womanhood, and it is the moon. Okay, so guys, now we're going to go way deep into the belly of the beast, so I hope you're ready for this next one, because it is the ultimate symbol of Satanism. All right, this next picture that I'm going to show you is the cover from the Satanic Bible. And the only reason I'm going to show you this is because we're going to start drawing some parallels. It's important for you to see the Satanist Bible symbol and what they use as a symbol, because it's all over the temples. There are 40 of these pentagrams all over the Salt Lake Temple. Maybe once we figure out what this means, we can start asking ourselves, why are they there? But let's take a look at this. Look at that. Okay, the Satanist Bible from Anton LaVey. We have the pentagram here in the circle, and notice that the 5-pointed star is facing down. See that? Now we'll talk about what this drawing means here in just a minute. But I want you to get familiar with that symbol. Now, let's take a look at pentagrams on the Nauvoo Temple. Let's see here. Thank you, MormonOutreach.org. Some of these pictures came from there. I got the Satanic Bible picture myself. See this inverted pentagram here? You've got the inverted pentagram over there with the circle in the center. We have the Baal sun right there. So we've got lots of symbolism on the Nauvoo Temple. So the upright pentagram, let's take a look at what it's supposed to look like. Okay, this is what a proper star looks like, a 5-pointed star. Now each point does represent an element. You've got spirit, air, earth, fire, and I'm missing one, water. Okay, but it is said that this top star here, this point on the star, represents spirit. So why is it inverted? You know, we see the 5-pointed star on the United States flag. We see it all over the place. It's part of the Air Force symbol. You can't get much more apple pie than that. But if you'll notice, start looking at the 5-pointed star and a lot of the political paraphernalia that they put out, especially with the Democrats, and we're not going to get into politics here, but you'll notice that over the years the 5-pointed star has gone from the spirit, or the top element of the star has now gone down. Take a look at that. It's very interesting. From its earliest forms of Wiccan, the pentagram was taken as a symbol for the first and most basic degree of the craft. Okay, and remember, Joseph Smith studied the craft. He grew up in occultism, so he understood these symbolisms and practiced folk magic all growing up, long before he joined the Masons. So he already knew this. Okay, the symbol for the third or most advanced degree included the inverted pentagram. Did you hear that? Okay, the symbol for the third or most advanced degree included the inverted pentagram. Now that's not the highest degree, but that is the sublime degree. Now pentagrams are used in black magic. Okay, it is the sign of the cloven hoof or the footprint of the devil. And that is why that original picture I showed you had the goat that was drawn inside the pentagram. The 2 points upward. Let's see if we can, let me pull this back out here. Oh, I've got it in my hands. Okay. See that right here, the goat inside? This is called the goat of Mendes or the Baphomet. And we're going to talk about a hand signal that goes along with this in just a second. Okay, but the top pointing down represents the fall of the morning star. And here we have the fall of the morning star all over the temples. Like I said, the Salt Lake Temple has 40 of these all over it. Now, this is the symbol, okay, the satanic symbol, but I'm going to show you the hand sign for it. And it goes like this. Okay, so when you see celebrities, you know, it looks like that. When you see celebrities, politicians, artists doing that hand symbol, it does not mean I'm cool or rock on type of thing. They are doing the hand signal for the goat of Mendes or the Baphomet, which is a satanic symbol. So I want you guys to be aware whether it is this symbol that you are looking at, and you'll see this in the background of different movies. You might see it on clothing insignia. You might see it on a picture on the wall in the background so that your subconscious mind is picking it up. You'll see politicians walking around and throwing the Baphomet, whether it's out, the goat horns are out this way or this way, same thing. It's all a satanic symbol. Awareness is your greatest spiritual tool, and we talked about that. So hopefully you guys will start to ask questions. Why is this symbol all over the temple? And you'll see that in the tabernacle, around Temple Square and so forth. Let's move on to number 4. This is called the all-seeing eye. Now I'm going to show you a picture of this. Of course, then we're going to talk about what the josephsmithfoundation.org website has to say about the all-seeing eye, and then we're going to talk about the truth. Okay, so let's take a look at this. There we go. You see that? No doubt you guys have seen the all-seeing eye in many places. It is also called the Eye of Horus, and we're going to get into that. But first, let's see what the church website has to say. The all-seeing eye was defined as the all-searching eye of the great Jehovah. What a bunch of shit. I just want you to know that right from the beginning. As we go through this, just realize that this is disinformation right here. This was said by President Brigham Young and Elder Orson Hyde. This symbol is believed to represent the omniscience of God and his ability to perceive all things. Now, Brigham was a Mason, so he knew this. This is why I say it's disinformation and not misinformation, because he was deliberately misleading people by saying this. The heavenly eye can be found depicted on many LDS structures, including the St. George and Ogden tabernacles. 2 all-seeing eyes are engraved on the exterior of the Salt Lake Temple, one on the east, the other on the west. Each of the emblems are shown peering out of the veil. The east veil has a tassel, perhaps, okay, listen to their wording. Perhaps to remind the saint that they are marked as a covenant people and must keep the commandments. So there's no factual evidence there. It's just a guess. Perhaps. Let's talk about the esoteric origin of the all-seeing eye, or the Eye of Horus. The all-seeing eye is the Eye of Horus, a pagan god, son of Osiris and Isis. And here again, we're going to talk about the Trinity. The ancient Egyptian Eye of Horus is a powerful symbol of protection and is also considered to confer wisdom, health, and prosperity. Horus was one of the most important Egyptian gods, a sun god. Here again, we have sun worship. A sun god represented as a falcon or with the head of a hawk, whose right eye was the sun and whose left eye was the moon. Okay? Go back to what we said earlier. He was the son of Osiris, god of the underworld, and Isis, mother goddess. Osiris was slain by his own brother, the evil Set, jackal-headed god of night. Where does that story sound familiar? Start putting these puzzle pieces together, my friends. And Horus fought Set to avenge his father's death, winning the battle, but losing an eye in the process. Okay, remember that, losing an eye in the process. The eye was restored by the magic of the god of wisdom and the moon, Thoth, and this allowed Horus to grant Osiris rebirth in the underworld. The Eye of Horus symbol was used in funerary rites and decoration as instructed by the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Also used by the Egyptians to represent fractions based on repeat division by 2, and this is after 1200 BC. Both the right and the left eyes of Horus were depicted by the ancient Egyptians. The wounding of the left eye served as a mythical explanation of the phases of the moon, and its magical restoration meant that the left was usually the one to be used as an amulet and considered to be the eye of Horus. The right eye is sometimes referred to as the eye of Ra. So you have the eye of Horus and the eye of Ra, which we talked about Ra, Amun, Ra in another video. The sun god, though often little distinction is made between the two eyes. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about that, because the eye of Horus is everywhere. And if you'll remember, they just said the left eye missing of Horus. Well, I want to show you guys a couple of things, because this particular symbol we see everywhere on shirts, on the back of the $1 bill. I'm going to show you that in a second. We see celebrities all the time in their photo shoots doing this kind of stuff. They're always covering the left eye or highlighting the left eye in some way. So I'm going to show you a picture here. The middle says, "Hell is empty. All the devils are here." And this is from William Shakespeare. But let's take a look at some of your favorite celebrities, or the ones they put in front of us. And look at all of that. Take note of this young lady up here. She's using the Baphomet hand sign, okay, over the left eye. We've got 666 right up there. They are telling you in some way, they're highlighting the left eye, okay? Here we have the apple, and this is a fraction. This is just a fraction of the pictures and the celebrities that are out there telling you what it is they really believe in some way, which is that they are still worshiping this type of deity. Let's take a look at the American $1 bill. We will see it here represented. See that? This truncated part, that's what we call a truncated part of the pyramid. And you'll see the eye of Horus inside. Why? Because again, the United States was not founded upon Christian principles as has been taught to you and I, but really these are Freemasons who understand the occult. Okay, so keep your eye out for this. That way, when you're looking at these things, you're going to understand what it is they're saying to you. You will be symbol literate. And that is the point of all this. All right, symbol number 5 is going to seem pretty innocent and innocuous, but again, like everything, there is an esoteric meaning, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. The beehive. What's so wrong about a sweet beehive, right? That's innocent enough. Utah is the beehive state because Utahns and Mormons in particular are very industrial. They're hard workers. They pull together and they get to enjoy the fruits of their labors. The reward is sweet. So that's what we're told is the meaning behind the beehive, but that's not true. The original origin of the beehive, let's go into that. I'm going to provide a couple of resources for you here because this actually has a very complex meaning behind it. And we can't cover all of the symbols, all the meanings behind the symbols, and we certainly can't do that with the beehive. So I hope you guys will look into it because it's definitely worth you taking this a little bit further. The original origin of the beehive represents the 13th Holy Merovingian bloodline through the house of David. The 13th Illuminati bloodline is where the Antichrist is said to come from. This bloodline believes that it has both the holy blood of Jesus and the blood or the seed of Satan. Mormons believe they are spiritual brothers, and that's what we were taught, right? In the pre-existence, Okay. Within Illuminati rituals, they emphasize that the 13th bloodline is the seed of Satan. They believe themselves to be direct descendants of Jesus' spiritual brother, Lucifer. Joseph Smith Jr. and other leaders of the Mormon Church are both descendants of the Merovingian bloodline and practicing Satanists. Okay, and they were very open about that, by the way. Symbols of the Merovingian dynasty are the Knights Templar with the Red Cross sign, okay, the Fleur-de-lis, and the bee. Thank you to Fritz Springmeier, author of Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I would definitely recommend you guys looking into him. He's done tremendous work, tremendous. So let's take a look at what the Freemasons say that the symbolism of the bee is. The symbolism of the beehive given to the candidate in the 3rd degree as a hieroglyphic emblem. So this is just a little symbol for them when they reach the sublime degree that, look, you're there, and they have certain meanings that go with it. At certain times, the candidate is placed within these subtle structures, just like a comb. Okay, think about how the beehive is structured. Placed within these subtle structures so that it is thought that he may absorb the subtle influences invoked by the rites. And inside the traditions that have been transmitted to us under the name of Freemasonry lie concealed a multitude of mysteries. The hive properly, and this is from C.C. Zane of Ancient Masonry, quote, "The hive properly denotes man's physical body. The honeycomb signifies that which is interior to the physical and astral body. And the honey is symbolic of the spiritual body, which is composed of the choicest nectars and aromas of earthly experience." Okay, so this has a wealth of meaning. I love the synchronicities of the universe. Last night, my husband and I had bought this movie, and for no reason at all, in one of the scenes, they had this huge beehive in there where the honeys were making, they were doing their thing and creating the honey. And then, of course, the bees got loose and created chaos and what have you. But I thought, how interesting and ironic and synchronistic that there it was in the movie last night, and we were going to be talking about the bee today. So there are the 5 satanic symbols that we're going to go over today, and just as a bonus, we're going to do one more hand signal. Now I'm going to show you a picture that we should all be familiar with. I think I saw that at least 10,000 times growing up. I'm going to show it to you, and then I want you to study it for a second and see if anything looks a little odd, out of place for you. Go with your gut. Okay, we know this is Joseph Smith. Study him for just a moment. Does anything jump out at you as looking a little bit weird? Look at that right there. Okay, I remember looking at his hand when I was a little girl going, okay, they did a nice depiction of him, even though it's not entirely accurate with the way he was said to have looked, but his hand always looked weird to me. And I didn't know why, but that's not a natural hand signal. It is the hand signal for the letter M, M meaning Mason, okay? Just try to make your hand like that. Okay, it takes practice to make it look like an M, all right? And if you think this is a stretch, 1, I want you to Google Freemasonic hand signs. You'll find it. And 2, let's take a look at some comparisons. What I was actually looking for this video was a picture of Mitt Romney when he was running for president. He would stand there with his hand on his hip, and he had his hand in the shape of the M, and I knew what that meant, but I wanted to show that picture to you, and I just, after going through 100 pictures, I couldn't find it. So instead, I found a triple picture of Pope Benedict, Hitler, and Ignatius of Loyola, which I introduced in the last video as being the leader and the founder of the Order of the Jesuits. Let's take a look at their peculiar hand signs. See that? Same exact, right in front of your face. Ignatius's hands look crazy, and look at those fingers. But they got the M right. Here we have occultist Hitler with his hand in the M. And then we have the Holy Pope there with his hand in the shape of an M. So do I think this was up to artistic liberties and by chance? No, I do not. And once you start becoming symbol literate, then you will see that these things are done intentionally, and you can definitely call it for what it is, which is satanic. Now, this is part 1 of part 2, so stand by next week. We're going to go into a few more symbols that are on the Mormon temples so that you can get a bigger, more well-rounded picture of what's going on. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them below. I ask 2 things. Be polite. Provide resources. It's really that simple. If you can do that, we'll be happy to engage in conversation. Like and subscribe. Ding my little bell so that you guys can get notices. I love to hear from you. You can always reach me at galacticstoryteller@gmail.com, or you can go to my website.com. I've got lots of information there, guys. It's not just about Mormonism. There is life after Mormonism, and it runs way deeper than religion. And so we cover a lot of that on the website. You guys have a great week. Take care, and we'll see you for part 2.